Hello, my name is Richard. We have a little tiny shop in the East Village called Ho Foods, H-O space Foods. We make Taiwanese food, lots of simple dishes that we grew up with that kind of remind me of, dishes that are from our mother country, Taiwan. This is my wife, Caroline. She's a very important part of this whole thing. And
so what dish are we making today?
we're making Lu Rou Fan.
And what cut of pork are we using?
We're using pork belly. We start off with, at home, I would just get this is about a kilo, 2 pounds-ish or something like that. You can make as little as much as you want. I just want to kind of like dice this into small little dice over here. If you have a sharp knife, that's not a problem at all. But if you don't, then sometimes blanching can help a little bit. We really focus on having like a really, depending on how you do it, but sometimes like really clean kind of meat flavor. So we blanch. I think in some cultures, they roast, but for whatever reason in Asian we blanch a lot. But later on we're going to put a little bit of color on this as well. I like it about about a 1/4 inch, I guess. If you like it a little bit bigger, a little bit smaller, it's just really up to you. It'll all cut down eventually. Sometimes you get like a nice beautiful piece like this and you ask yourself, why do I have to go through the work and cut the whole thing over and over again, which is a great question. And the answer to that is you don't. Just leave it whole and then it'll taste just as good. You'll just have a slab of pork instead of little dices of pork. But we're just going to do this the way it says on the recipe sheet for today. Just because, and yeah. Anyways, we cut them into strips. Okay, I'm just gonna blanch this really quickly. If this doesn't blanch, we'll pretend that it does. We're gonna take this pork out. This is So I think at this point we're gonna slice this up into kind of little pieces. I'm gonna have like this, but there's a few pieces for Caroline to slice. So I guess let's talk about rice a little bit. In Taiwan we kind of like short grain, what some people would call sticky rice. Make sure you don't buy glutinous rice. Glutinous rice is different. Glutinous rice is like what you make mochi with, like Thai sticky rice, that kind of like, it really sticks together rice. Short grain sticky rice is like, like koshikari or like koku rose, like stuff people might use for sushi or stuff like that. When you're cooking rice at home, we were talking about this earlier, is that I've almost only used a rice cooker my whole life. Like making rice on a stove is really weird.
Usually I make rice.
Yes, she usually does make rice.
It's the one thing I know how to do.
When you make rice, the only time I've made rice in a pot, it's like when you go to a cabin and they're like, we really want some rice.
Oh yeah, cabins.
And there's only like a shitty pot in there, and you're like, all right, well. Anyways, let's get this thing going. So we're not here forever. So hot pan, I'm just gonna put this in here.
Didn't I do such a good job?
Oh, you did such a great job. Look at how beautiful all the pieces are.
I'm like the beginner.
Let's get a little...
Yeah, so they're little pieces.
Maybe angle it a little bit more towards me.
Yeah.
Wanna jiggle it?
Just like little pieces just like that, where there's a little bit of skin, there's a little bit of meat, there's a little bit of fat. It looks like,
It's very pretty.
Moab or something like that,
like
where there's just like striations in there. And, I think that the perfect ratio sometimes is like just equal half and half, like half meat, half fat with a little layer of skin in there. And we'll just go in.
Sizzle.
It's okay to kind of crowd the pan a little bit. I'm not looking for like a hard sear on this at all. But I'm just gonna leave it like that for a little bit, just so that bottom layer gets a little bit of color in there. Once we get a little bit of color in there, we'll start putting in some ingredients. If at this point you're cooking and some like water leaches out because you know, whatever reason, you haven't dried it enough, there was some water in the bowl, let that cook off or just pour it out. You know, you do want like a little bit of color on your pork. Just, you know, a little bit of brown color just tastes good sometimes. The first thing I want to put in is actually soy sauce. You know, soy sauce, if you taste it raw, just taste a little bit raw. It's nice to cook soy sauce a little bit. You know, when you caramelize it, it's really delicious. If you see wok chefs, they always pour soy sauce on the outside, and as it drizzles in, it kind of sears, and you kind of get that little like caramelization that's really delicious. And you go to yakitori places, they might like, you know, burn the extra charcoal in there in the tare because they want to like caramelize some of that flavor as well. So, you know, in a little pot like this, I don't know how much serum can actually do, but I'm just going to pour this in. This is, I believe it's 50 milliliters. I'm just going to let that sit a little bit just to cook. So once that in,
Really good right now.
kind of that like burnt soy sauce flavor just tastes good. And then we're gonna start adding the other stuff. Yeah, you wanna put some fried shallots in here?
Sure.
Put it all in there.
All of it?
Yep. I'm gonna hand you some other stuff. There's some rock sugar. This is like rock sugar from Taiwan. You can get it, so it's really nice little pieces. If you don't have rock sugar, regular sugar works, turbinado sugar works. But on the other hand, if you just have like regular white sugar at home, organic sugar, turbinado sugar, if you wanna use coconut sugar, so there you go.
Yeah. Mix it in?
Yeah, mix it in. And kind of the other big flavor component to this is just 5-spice. 5-spice is like, can be many different things, but star anise, cinnamon, fennel, maybe. It can be, yeah, any 5-spice works. You just kind of want a little bit of more spice in there. And there's a teaspoon in here, or a teaspoon for about 2 pounds. And you know, don't be afraid to kind of go a teaspoon on it. I don't know if that's heavy or light to anyone, but put that in there.
Nice.
I really like white pepper, like kind of a freshly ground white pepper. I think white pepper and pork just go so delicious together, so we put a little bit of this in there as well. There you go. And you need a little bit of liquid in there, and you can definitely use a little bit of pork stock or whatever stock you have on hand. We didn't make any stock today, so we're just gonna put beer. The recipe calls for an exact Taiwan Classic can, which is like 325 milliliters. You wanna pour that in?
The whole thing?
Yeah. And then at this point, we're gonna let it come up to a boil a little bit, and then turn it down. Just you can pour the whole thing in. Turn it down to a simmer. And we'll let that go for about like 2 hours. I'll leave the lid on, just so that pork kind of cooks through. And once that pork cooks through, and it's almost there, I will think about like, if I want that sauce to thicken up a little bit, I'll take the lid off and let it reduce. But I don't reduce it first, or else, you know, I guess you can add more water later too. It's not a big deal, but you can kind of take a look over there with the camera. It's kind of this saucy, this loose saucy thing. You know, this is all, over time, this will all kind of like fall apart. All right, so our beautiful rice is ready. We just put some in here. I try not to like smash it too much. We spent all this time to keep it fluffy. No need to make like a perfect little round thing on the outside. I think it tastes better that way. So yeah, it's a little, let's put this back over here. Let's check on our pork. I'm just gonna bring this whole thing over here. So you can see it kind of reduced a ton. The pieces are still like whole. This could probably go for a little bit longer, but I think it's totally edible right now. It's gonna be delicious. We put a little bit of orange zest in there. I might just put a little bit more, just because. Anyways, there's gonna be a little bit of a slick of fat on top, which is perfectly okay. I'm gonna thicken this up just with a little bit of this soy paste. Maybe just like a tablespoon or so. You can use like a little slurry if you want. Either way. Today we use all dark soy, that's why it's kind of a little darker in color, but you can mix this up with a little bit of regular soy and half dark soy as well. And then now we're just getting a little spoonful of this. Just right over the top, just like that. And then you want something to cut the fat a little bit. So we just have some pickled daikon. These are really, really simple. It's just like salt, vinegar, sugar kind of a thing. We just leave that right on the side. All right, here's a bowl of Lu Rou Fan. Thanks so much for hanging out and watching me make this humble dish. I'm gonna take a bite out of this, I think. Is that okay? Yeah? Oh man. That's a good question. We're on 7th Street in the East Village between 1st and Avenue A. And we got weird hours, but we're usually just closed Tuesday. But we're there. I don't think we're closing anytime soon, I hope. So come find us. Hi to the whole team. Everyone's super fun and nice, and we're happy to, I think everyone's gonna be really excited to see people come in. But anyways, thanks so much for hanging out with us and, watching us make some kind of really humble Taiwanese food.